Riley Everyday is back for the final installment of our Sleepers Top 100 countdown for the best players heading into the season on opening day, no less. What better time to wrap up a countdown? I am joined by Greg Waddell, who is once again enjoying his duties as a participant, not a host. Shout out to you, G. Hope this is fun for you. But let's just go ahead and get right into it. I will have you read this final group of players going down from number 10 all the way up to number one.
Todd Pettiford, number 10. AJ DeBonsa, number 9. Number 8, Trey Kaufman-Renn. Number 7, my superstar, Yaxel Lendeborg. Number 6, Donovan Dent. Number 5, Cameron Boozer, the most winning prep player of all time. Number 4, Otega Owe, or as I call him, Ooh. Number 3, Darren D.P. Peterson. Number 2, JT Toppin. And number 1, the co-host of Running Point with Braden Smith on the Sleepers Media channel, Braden Smith.
Who is he co-hosting with?
With Sleepers Media, actually, with us. Yeah.
Good reminder. I just wanted to make sure people heard that. I don't know if they saw the announcement. I don't know. The Twitter algo showed that to me as a trending topic for the day. That is my reality that we're in. I like to think that that was true for everyone's algo and not just mine. But anyway, we don't need to belabor the point right now. But it's a great group of players, guys who will contend for All-American spots. Probably aren't going to have too much disagreement in terms of does this player belong in this tier or whatever. But we're still going to get into these categories. And I'll kick it off with you, Greg, asking you which of these players do you think is most likely to outperform his ranking?
So I got a question on this because I agree with you to your point. This feels like a pretty consensus-y top 10. I think if you polled 100 random college basketball fans, they could come up with a pretty similar list to this with at least 9 of these names. There's no one I want to argue is not deserving of being in the top 10.
Hmm.
Um, when you talk like too low for this exercise, to me, it's different than doing the lower tiers of this.
Right.
Are we saying too low in the context of we think they are more likely to achieve first team All American? Or are we doing too low just in terms of who they are, talent as a basketball player? Because situations will swing a few of these one way or the other, and that's the only way I can differentiate.
Greg, great question. Can you remind the people again, what outlet is this for?
This is for Sleepers Media.
What does Sleepers Media not like doing?
There's a lot of things actually, but I don't know where you're going with this.
Ascribing by one set of criteria. There's always flexibility. I will say here, you could see this in terms of, I'm almost thinking of this as like, has a chance to move from that you could, I mean, you could even argue someone like Darren Peterson will outperform and be the best player in the sport. You could argue that for Cam Boozer. You could take this any number of ways where maybe they're more likely to make an All-American team or even just have that, no other way to put it other than the vibe of like can captivate an audience or even I like to think which of these players is most likely to receive you're going to get a group text. Let's say it's our Sleepers Media group text and someone texts all caps, Trey Kaufman-Renn. I see that I'm probably like, okay, it's probably just him scoring 20 and drawing fouls. I'm not really tapping into that. But if someone texts all caps, AJ DeBonsa, Cam Boozer, Darren Peterson, it's like, oh, shoot, I better go to the TV and find this game right now.
Yeah, okay, I
That,
love
that's
that.
that's the essence I'm trying to capture
So
here.
the answer is which of these players is most likely to captivate a generation?
Mhm.
So to me, only 2 guys I think are too low in that context then. And I'll end up giving the lower number as my answer. I think it's Cam Boozer and Yaxel Lendeborg. Yaxel Lendeborg, I understand I'm about to go full homerism here. If we're just talking like who could do something mind blowing, or even who could literally end this year being the best player in the country, it's Yaxel. And with all due respect to a couple guys ahead of him, Donovan Dent can't do that. There's no world where we end the season saying Donovan Dent is the best player in America. Not going to happen. I think Otega Owe is similar. As good as he is, I don't think that's going to happen. Yaxel at 7th is the lowest rated guy. I think we could see that come true for. His numbers at UAB were worthy of being National Player of the Year. It was at UAB, so he was never going to do it. And this is basically a case study in like, let me put you back a couple of years. What if Obi Toppin left Dayton and went to like, I guess, Texas? And then at Texas just did the same thing he did at Dayton. we might be like, damn, that's the best player in the country. Like that's what Yaxel has an opportunity to do. He shouldn't be in college. He should be in the NBA. And I have no doubt, based on what I've seen, it's like just effortless production in a way no one else on this list, other than the top two guys, are going to do.
I love that answer. I think Michigan is a team where, for a large chunk of the offseason, I viewed them closer to a top 15 team than a top five team, like most of the love they were getting. But the more I've sat with that, the more I've watched Yaxel, and even the more I've gotten a glimpse into like Dusty's playbook, I think he's such an elite offensive coach that he is going to figure out ways to keep the lane clear for guys like Yaxel, for guys like Elliot Kadove. Like I don't see the shooting concerns being that big of an issue just because I trust Dusty to scheme around it and find ways to mitigate it. I mean, Michigan wasn't a great shooting team last year, and they still like made a really fun product. And again, Danny Wolf would have checked a lot of boxes in terms of if someone texts you that name, I'm tuning in immediately to see what this latest Danny Wolf highlight is. And I just think that like oddly, even as we're seeing different preseason lists come out that are picking Michigan to the Final Four national champions, Michigan to me feels a little slept on just based on people panic. All these bigs work together where it's like, man, they have a really, really good coach. Some might say, I think Norlander had him 12th in the sport, like a top 12 coach in the game. He will probably figure it out. And there's so much talent here and a guy who, like, we literally just saw his exact same archetype go from the Ivy League to a first round pick. And I think Lindeborg is better at this point than Wolf was last year. So,
I have
uh,
no idea how it's going to go too, but just even comparatively to a couple other guys on this list, and I'm telling you, this is as someone who watches more college basketball than anybody I know. I've watched every single second of Michigan basketball for 15 years at this point. Yaxel truly, you have to go back to Trey Burke for a player who's been anywhere near the level of what he just like instantaneously looks. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be Trey Burke, not saying he's going to have those magic moments. There are certainly going to be ups and downs and swings in this season. I'm just talking like, who is this guy wearing this uniform? That guy is more talented than anybody I've seen in a Michigan uniform since Burke. I don't think UCLA fans would say that about Dent. I don't think Duke fans would say that about Boozer, especially as he is. He's not Cooper Flag. I don't think Kentucky fans are saying that about Owe. I don't think Texas Tech fans are even saying that about Toppin. There are some guys that are pretty singular and like, wow, we are lucky to have this guy. This season with Michigan and Yaxel is very much that for me.
yeah, compelling case. I would actually go with your other option for the guy I think is most likely to outperform with Cam Boozer. It just seems like everything that he did in high school has translated immediately in terms of rolling out of bed with 20 and 10, in terms of the winning, like how hard he plays, the way his guys rally around him. The ball is going to be in his hands a ton. And it's like I thought he was smaller than I think he might be listed at 6'10, he might be 6'9, somewhere in that range. So I'm like, oh, does he have the size? Well, I guess 6'10 is still a pretty big guy. But even if like the Paulo comparison to me, Paulo was just a different level of like athlete handle size, like all mixed into one than Boozer is. But it doesn't seem like that's really held him back some. I have some slight questions, I guess, about him beating guys off the bounce if that's a big part of his game. But I just think so much of what he'll do in terms of facing up, attacking the offensive glass, ending possessions on the other side of the court, and just being a productive menace are going to translate immediately. Duke is going to lean on him so much. I think that he could end up averaging like 18 and 15, 19 numbers somewhere in that realm to where we're looking at him as a surefire top three player in the country.
I love Cam. I think it is too low to have him five for me, for sure. I think the debate on who the best freshman in the country is will wage all season long. I personally wouldn't take either of them over Booze. I just think the production, again, kind of like Yaxel, the production he's showing in early games is like insane. Like he was up against one of the more physical, best rebounding teams in America and spit out 24 boards like it's nothing. I don't even know who is capable of doing that in their second career college game that I've ever seen. And then you get the locker room stuff. I know you're probably as a Carolina fan like shaking your head to it, but like this dude actually, the scout is that he's a transcendent leader. And that is so rare for a freshman, let alone for anyone. I'm excited to see what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean to add to that before we move on, I've said this since I read like the Sweeney feature on the Boozers almost a year ago. I was like, shoot, this kid's really hard to dislike.
Yeah.
And I hate that as a Carolina fan, but you got to you just got to tip your cap at some point. So shout out to Booze. Let's get a little negative. Like we said, not much disputing when it comes to this list of top 10 players. However, there is a chance one of these guys might underachieve. And is there anyone who sticks out to you as like this is the guy who might underperform where we have him ranked?
I think I struggle with this. I think there's a small contingent of guys that could end the season outside the top 10.
Hmm.
Owe, Kaufman, Wren, and Pettiford would be my three.
Wow, I didn't expect Owe there.
I think always deserving of being here now. I have no questions asked on that. I've just come around on my worldview of Kentucky and what they are based on what we've seen in the exhibitions and what's coming. I know Ortega's amazing, but I think so much of who they'll be is going to be tied to Jalen Lowe.
Hmm.
So much of what they want to be is tied to Jaden Quaintance. I don't even really think Mark Pope is going to ask Otega Owe to be a first team All American level producer. I think they just want him to be the same guy he was last year. And I kind of glossed over that in the offseason because everybody kept saying, like, yeah, Otega's Otega. That's the update. It wasn't like Otega's a new version of himself and he's ready to put this team on his back. And he doesn't need to be more for Kentucky to be really good. That's the luxury of being Kentucky. But they're so damn deep. He might not play 30 minutes. I mean, Mark, he might play literally everybody 24 minutes, like Michigan State last year, Otega included. I think that'll end up damaging his individual numbers a little bit.
Yeah, that's a fair case. And I just think some of these guys, like with some of the older dudes, sometimes you end up looking at their career and there's statistical anomalies. There are years where guys have higher points per game, other years it dips, and it could be one of those instances for Ortega, especially if the minutes aren't there. I would argue Pettiford. I just am not getting the best vibes with Auburn right now. I hate the late season coaching switch, especially when it's a first time head coach. I just think teams like that tend to struggle at least out the gates. And when you combine that with a new role for Tahad, that just has me a little bit hesitant that it's going to be like a one for one swap where he's just as awesome as he was last year, where he was able to be this shot hunting bench spark. To his credit, here would be the case for Tahad. He did score 16 or more points in three of their five NCAA tournament games, came up big in clutch moments all year. Like he seems to be wired for the moment. And he's an insane shot creator. I don't think hardly anyone in the country can stay in front of him. Super bouncy, super explosive. Better passer, I think, than given credit for. Let's see. I had some statistic here. He was second on the team in assists at the rim last season, which would lead you to believe he's able to collapse defenses. He's able to find bigs for easy buckets, make life easier on his teammates. But I just have a little bit of fear that with a worse supporting cast around him and presumably a coaching downgrade, that we might see him. Like, I have no question he'll probably average north of 17 points per game. But the questions remain like just how impactful will it be to winning and how good will this team be? Will the team be
Yeah.
good enough for him to warrant a top 10 spot?
Yeah, I think you're hoping like to that point, I think you're hoping he's closer to Braden Smith, as crazy as that sounds. They're not the same game, but you're hoping that's the tier he ends up in and not like way more fun Josh Hubbard.
Hmm.
And right now he feels a lot closer to the way more fun Josh Hubbard than he does a second team All American. It's not his fault necessarily, but he's the victim of the situation.
I think that's a really good way to put it. That was actually the name that came to mind when I was like, he's going to give you your scoring, but will it contribute to winning? What about your favorite player out of this group? Who do you like to watch the most?
I mean, it's Braden. It will always be Braden. I would have said this long before we booked the project, but let's just keep word vomiting about him. I think he's a once in a lifetime playmaker. Clearly, I don't think you get to the point where you are about to set the NCAA's all-time assist record without that. But let me give you the emotional heartstring pitch on why this season's going to be special from Braden and why he should be the story of college basketball. This kid, reminder, every step of the way, it's never been his moment ever, right? It was three-star recruit, and we can't believe Painter's banking on a freshman point guard. Then it was, oh my God, this kid's really good, but he's going to be what holds them back in March. Then they lose to a Sweet Six or a 16 seed. It was him that held them back in March. Then it's the special year with Edey. And the whole year we just had to hear about how Edey's dragging these guys. It's all Zach Edey. What a generational talent he is. Then it comes to his junior year. And again, I don't want to say the critics are right because Braden was a first team All American last year. He was amazing. But the team took a huge step backwards. And it was a big time point for those that said this team is not going to be as good without Edey. Now you enter a season, right or wrong, he deserves this type of praise finally. He's the
Mhm.
preseason player of the year on the preseason number one team. in a season where he is likely to set a record that will never be touched again, with the Final Four in their home state waiting for them at the finish line. This kid, I say it and I get chills when I talk about it. It's insane that we're only 2 years removed from Edie, and a legacy that could surpass Zach Edie's is on the table for the 3-star kid from the state of Indiana. And that's where we're at right now, and I'm going to cherish every opportunity watching him along the way.
Great way to tee it up. I think, Greg, so much like I've said this when we've broken down G League commitments or guys looking to move from the pro ranks to college. We've talked a ton about international guys who played overseas for 3 or 4 years professionally before coming to college. We talk a lot about the transfer portal. We get content. We make money off of the changing landscape of college sports. That's like part of it. We tend to embrace it. I think we love the humor it provides. We love we love the drama, the pageantry, all of that. That is like part of our brand. That's what we enjoy. We think it's fun to cover. And yet, Greg, I still think there's parts of us as we're getting up there in age a little bit, but still sort of long for the old days of college sports. And I have plenty of friends, plenty of Carolina fan friends who are just like, oh, I can't stay connected anymore. It's changing too much, blah, 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 whatever, whatever. And I don't want to invalidate that. But I would say there are still stories like that in this game that we love. There are still players who stick it out with their school, who rise through the ranks, who go from unheralded to becoming like all-American or someone who is now the preseason player of the year. There are stories still like that are a testament to a program's culture, to their development, to sort of the mystique around college hoops that made a lot of us fall in love with the sport in the first place. And I think as much as I will embrace the chaos that is college basketball in 2025, I still love these stories that can pull on the heartstrings like you're talking about and reminds us of like simpler times, so to speak, to get a little nostalgic on you. But yeah, it's a really, really just fascinating storyline to follow his whole career arc. But even this year where it's like, one last dance, so to speak, and can he get over the hump? Can he get Purdue in uncharted territory? So no pushback from me on that pick. I'll just say Darren Peterson and keep it moving. He's fun, generational guard prospect. The whole aesthetic of Kansas, like the jerseys, the blue blood stature, all of that for DP. Can't wait to tune in and see what he does.
He loves
Except
Drake music too. That makes it extra fun. Honestly, both the top guards of this list are big Drake guys. That's huge for the brand.
I agree. Can't wait to see what DP does this year, even if it is at my expense on Friday night. Let's wrap it up with this. Give me something you need to know about one of these players. You need to know blank about this player.
I need to know if AJ DeBonsa was told that we put him ninth on this list, would he care? And I got the chance to interview him at Big 12 Media Day. And I came away impressed, but also with some questions about the whole picture at BYU. I'm a big body language guy. I'm a big, like, just let's read the room guy. You could not find two individuals more different than Richie Saunders and AJ DeBonsa. And Richie's 24 and married, the heir of a potato fortune.
Empire.
And then you've got AJ, who is just this 18-year-old multimillionaire entrepreneur. And you're trying to mix this, like, these expectations of the weight of the world with two guys that play the same position and are also going to be asked to give the ball to a ball dominant point guard. There's a lot of stuff going on here. I asked them at Big 12 Media Day, like, straight up, if you're tied with 10 seconds left, who has the ball? And it was Richie Saunders, Rob Wright, and AJ DeBonsa. And they all looked at each other. And there was a moment of sincerity from them of like, we don't know. Shit, wait a second. We don't know. And then Richie kind of played vet and was like, well, you could go worse than giving it to Rob and just letting him run a ball screen. But it was kind of ducking the question. Like, which guy between Richie and AJ, these two sensational scorers, is going to be the guy? I would like to believe that AJ DeBonsa has the competitive engine that Cam Boozer or Darren Peterson have. But at the same time, I think if he did, I think we would have ranked him where we ranked Cam and Darren Peterson. And that's hanging over this season for me. There's no world where AJ DeBonsa is a worse basketball player than Trey Kaufman-Renn. There's no world where he's worse than Donovan Dent. But he's lower than those guys on this list, partially because of the situation, partially because we have questions about how he's going to approach this season. And there's a world we do end this year with where AJ is like second on this list. There's a world where he's totally outside of the top 10 because it just didn't work.
Mhm. Hmm. Yeah, you went an interesting direction with that question. I like it. I'm glad you went a lot more big picture, big questions. I was just going to give you a stat to end this with for something you need to know about Otega Owe. Sorry, before I get to Owe, that's actually I don't know. I would kind of hope even at this point that like even Richie and Ra would be like, let's give it to the 6'9" dude who can get a bucket with three guys on him, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. The footage of it hasn't come out, but I really hope it does because yeah, none of them were like quick to say somebody else either. It was
Mhm.
truly like this realization of like, wait, shit, normally that would be me, and it might not be. And I think they're gonna have to figure that out. It might be
Yeah.
clunky for a month.
Yeah, it's a fair point. My stat that I'll end with what you need to know about Otega Owe. Did you know that he led all players in the country last year, 6'5" and under in dunks?
I believe it.
There's 47 dunks on the year. Why has Kentucky not like promoted this? And Kentucky's great at social media and like all that stuff. Maybe someone from KSR has said it along the way and we missed it, but I feel like that needs to be like posted everywhere. Otega, most
Uh,
explosive player, 6'5" and under.
Dude, that can't be true. I listen to all things KSR. Every single second of KSR I listen to.
Polachek didn't hit us with that stat.
Yeah,
Polachek tweeted that out. The
I
Pilgrim.
it's shocking. Yeah, truly shocking.
Well, fun list, fun group of guys. Thanks for being here to wrap up this countdown with me, Greg. We are excited to kick off the season today and see how all this plays out.
Hey, thank you to you for spearheading this. You've done a great job this offseason, Riley. We appreciate it.